The American War of Independence, also known as the Revolutionary War, was a pivotal conflict that lasted from 1775 to 1783, culminating in the birth of a new nation. The war was characterized by dramatic battles, strategic alliances, and the transformation of the 13 American colonies into the United States of America. The conflict between Great Britain and its American colonies had been brewing for years, fueled by a series of grievances and ideological shifts. The colonies, which had enjoyed a degree of autonomy, increasingly chafed under British attempts to exert greater control. Key issues included taxation without representation, restrictions on westward expansion, and various regulatory acts imposed by the British Parliament, such as the Stamp Act of 1765 and the Townshend Acts of 1767. The situation reached a critical point with the imposition of the Intolerable Acts in 1774, punitive measures aimed at quelling colonial dissent, particularly in Massachusetts. In response, colonial leaders convened the First Continental Congress, which petitioned King George III for redress of grievances while also preparing for potential armed conflict. The first military engagements of the war occurred in April 1775 at Lexington and Concord near Boston. These skirmishes marked the beginning of armed conflict between colonial militias and British troops. The fledgling Continental Army, under the leadership of George Washington, faced significant challenges in organizing and supplying its forces. The situation escalated dramatically on July 4, 1776, when the Continental Congress adopted the Declaration of Independence in Philadelphia. This document, primarily authored by Thomas Jefferson, proclaimed the colonies' separation from Britain and articulated the principles of individual liberty and self-governance. However, not all colonists supported the cause of independence. Many, known as loyalists, remained loyal to the British Crown. Facing increasing hostility, significant numbers of loyalists migrated to Canada, while others continued to support the British war effort from within the colonies. The war's early years saw significant battles and strategic maneuvers. In June 1775, the Battle of Bunker Hill demonstrated the colonists' resolve, despite ending in a British victory. The Continental Army, though initially outmatched, proved it could stand up to British regulars. Washington's leadership became crucial as he took command of the Continental Army and began fortifying positions around Boston. The Siege of Boston lasted from April 1775 until March 1776, when Washington's forces, bolstered by artillery captured at Fort Ticonderoga, forced the British to evacuate. This early success boosted American morale and established Washington's reputation as a capable leader. However, an early attempt to expand the war into Canada ended in failure. In late 1775, American forces led by Generals Richard Montgomery and Benedict Arnold launched an invasion of Quebec. The campaign aimed to bring Canadian colonists into the rebellion against Britain, but it faced logistical challenges and harsh winter conditions. The assault on Quebec City in December 1775 was repelled, and Montgomery was killed. The failed invasion highlighted the difficulties of extending the conflict into unfamiliar territory and the limits of American military capabilities at the time. The British, with their superior military forces, soon focused on New York. In the summer of 1776, they captured New York City, forcing Washington to retreat across New Jersey and into Pennsylvania. The Battle of Long Island in August 1776 was a significant defeat for the Continental Army, which narrowly escaped annihilation through a nighttime evacuation across the East River. Despite these setbacks, Washington's forces achieved crucial victories at Trenton and Princeton in late 1776 and early 1777. On December 25, 1776, Washington led a daring crossing of the Delaware River, surprising the Hessian garrison at Trenton. This victory, followed by a triumph at Princeton, boosted American morale and proved the resilience of the Continental Army. These successes also helped secure vital re-enlistments and new recruits for the Continental Army. The turning point came at the Battle of Saratoga. In 1777, the British aimed to isolate New England by controlling the Hudson River Valley. Their strategy involved a three-pronged attack. General John Burgoyne would advance south from Canada, General William Howe would move north from New York City, and a smaller force under Colonel Barry St. Leger would march east from Lake Ontario. However, the plan quickly unraveled due to poor coordination and logistical difficulties. Burgoyne's progress was halted at Saratoga, where American forces under General Horatio Gates achieved a decisive victory in October 1777. The battles of Saratoga, particularly the engagements at Freeman's Farm and Bemis Heights, saw significant American contributions from figures like Benedict Arnold and Daniel Morgan. Arnold, despite later infamy for his treason, played a crucial role in these battles, leading aggressive attacks that disrupted British formations. The American victory at Saratoga had significant diplomatic repercussions. It convinced France, which had been covertly supplying the Americans with arms and ammunition, to openly ally with the United States. In February 1778, the Treaty of Alliance was signed, bringing French military and financial support to the American cause. This alliance provided much-needed resources, naval power, and additional troops. Spain and the Netherlands also joined the war against Britain, further stretching British resources. The winter of 1777 to 1778 at Valley Forge was a severe test for Washington's army. Harsh weather, inadequate supplies, and disease took a heavy toll. However, the arrival of Baron Friedrich von Steuben, a Prussian military officer, brought much-needed discipline and training. Von Steuben's efforts transformed the Continental Army into a more effective fighting force. His training regimen, documented in the Blue Book, standardized drill procedures and improved the Army's overall efficiency and combat readiness. In 1780, the British shifted their focus to the southern colonies, hoping to rally loyalist support. They achieved significant successes capturing Charleston, South Carolina in May 1780, after a lengthy siege. This was a major blow to American forces, resulting in the capture of over 5,000 Continental soldiers, one of the worst defeats of the war. The Southern Campaign also galvanized local resistance and guerrilla warfare. Figures such as Francis Marion, the Swamp Fox, employed hit-and-run tactics to harass British forces. Marion's knowledge of the South Carolina swamps allowed him to launch surprise attacks and then disappear into the terrain, frustrating British commanders. The tide began to turn with several key battles. The Battle of Kings Mountain in October 1780 saw Patriot militia decisively defeat Loyalist forces, disrupting British plans in the region. The following year, General Nathaniel Greene took command of the Southern Continental Army. Greene's strategy of attrition, avoiding large-scale confrontations while targeting British supply lines, weakened British control. The Battle of Cowpens in January 1781 was a significant victory for Greene's subordinate, General Daniel Morgan. Employing a double envelopment tactic, Morgan's forces decisively defeated a British detachment led by Colonel Banastre Tarleton. This victory boosted American morale and disrupted British operations in the Carolinas. British General Charles Cornwallis, after failing to secure the Carolinas, moved his forces into Virginia in 1781. Establishing a base at Yorktown, Cornwallis awaited reinforcements and supplies. However, this decision would prove to be a critical mistake. Washington seized the opportunity to strike, coordinating with French General Rochambeau and the French fleet under Admiral de Grasse. Washington and Rochambeau marched their combined forces south from New York to Virginia, while de Grasse's fleet blockaded the Chesapeake Bay, preventing British naval support from reaching Cornwallis. The Siege of Yorktown began in September 1781. American and French forces besieged the British positions, employing artillery and trench warfare to gradually encircle Cornwallis's army. The Franco-American artillery bombardment was relentless, causing significant damage to British fortifications and morale. On October 14, 1781, Allied forces launched a successful assault on the British redoubts, key defensive positions. This assault, led by Alexander Hamilton on the American side and a simultaneous French attack, breached British defenses and accelerated the siege's conclusion. After intense bombardment and trench warfare, Cornwallis surrendered on October 19, 1781. This defeat effectively ended major military operations in North America and forced the British government to negotiate peace. Peace negotiations began in earnest in 1782. American negotiators, including Benjamin Franklin, John Adams, and John Jay, skillfully maneuvered to secure favorable terms. The preliminary Articles of Peace were signed in November 1782, with the formal Treaty of Paris following on September 3, 1783. The Treaty of Paris recognized the independence of the United States and established its borders from the Atlantic Ocean to the Mississippi River and from Canada to Florida. Britain also ceded control of Florida back to Spain as part of the broader settlement. The treaty granted Americans fishing rights off the coast of Newfoundland and resolved various pre-war debts and the treatment of loyalists. The departure of the last British troops from New York City in November 1783 marked the end of British rule in the American colonies. The war had profound effects, not only on the American continent but also on the global balance of power, inspiring other colonial regions to seek independence. The successful conclusion of the War of Independence left the newly formed United States with significant challenges. The Articles of Confederation, adopted in 1781, provided a loose framework for national governance but proved inadequate for managing a unified country. The Articles established a weak central government, lacking the authority to levy taxes or regulate commerce effectively. Economic difficulties, interstate conflicts, and the need for a stronger central government led to the Constitutional Convention of 1787. The Constitutional Convention, held in Philadelphia, aimed to address the weaknesses of the Articles of Confederation. Delegates debated and ultimately crafted a new framework for governance. The resulting United States Constitution, ratified in 1788, established a federal system with checks and balances among the executive, legislative, and judicial branches. The addition of the Bill of Rights in 1791 addressed concerns about individual liberties and limited government power. These first 10 amendments to the Constitution guaranteed fundamental rights, such as freedom of speech, religion, and the press, as well as protections against arbitrary government actions. The American War of Independence was a complex and multifaceted conflict that reshaped the course of history. It was marked by strategic military campaigns, international alliances, and the determination of the American colonists to achieve self-governance. The war not only secured independence for the United States, but also laid the foundation for a nation built on democratic principles and the rule of law. The legacy of the Revolution continues to influence the United States and the broader world, exemplifying the enduring struggle for freedom and justice. The principles articulated in the Declaration of Independence and enshrined in the Constitution have inspired movements for democracy and human rights worldwide. The Revolution demonstrated the power of a unified populace to challenge tyranny and establish a government based on the consent of the governed. The success of the American Revolution had a profound impact on other revolutionary movements. It inspired the French Revolution, which sought to overthrow the monarchy and establish a republic based on liberty, equality, and fraternity. The American example also influenced independence movements in Latin America, where leaders like Simón Bolívar and José de San Martín drew inspiration from the principles of self-determination and republicanism. The American War of Independence was a transformative event that redefined the political landscape of the late 18th century. The war's success demonstrated the viability of republican government and the potential for colonies to achieve independence through coordinated effort and international alliances. The Revolution's legacy, embodied in the United States Constitution and Bill of Rights, continues to shape the nation's identity and its role as a beacon of democracy and freedom.